Hi, good evening. How are you doing? My name is Dinakar. I'm the founder of Samutana and the inventor of DoHow, a methodology for driving teams to achieve challenging goals. And while they're doing that, to get them to acquire leadership and management skills. The first one being doing the right thing, and the second being doing the thing right. And that's the difference between leadership and management. And both these skills get acquired as the teams achieve challenging goals and amazing outcomes. So it's quite interesting because in companies, the main objective is to achieve a goal and a target, and finally, it's about making sure that the top line and the bottom line is growing. And in doing so, there are a lot of training programs conducted. And I thought instead of conducting a training program, I would get the people to achieve the goals, which is the primary objective of training, and in doing so get the people trained along the way. And for that we've got multiple methodologies and multiple methods. The entire what should I say, platform, I call it as do how because that's the way how you do something. Of course, do how also is comprising of do why, because that is the first thing before you do how, to really understand why is it that you're doing something. And do how comprises of various tools and techniques. And if you want to know more about that, please do visit our website dinakarmurthy.com, or you can always write a mail to me. Dinakar@samutana.com is my email address. So with that very brief introduction, let me directly jump into the topic of the day, which is to talk about cons and negatives of decision analysis, which is the topic for the week. I've been speaking about this on Monday and Tuesday. Monday, I spoke about the introduction to decision analysis, which is basically a method to aid a leader to really come at to really take decisions which are transparent, which are traceable, which are very very fair, and involves the participation of all the stakeholders, which would then secure that there is a buy-in. And here I said you need to really differentiate. First of all, identify the factors which are critical for the decision, and then after that, uh, uh, get them into two different groups: must factors and want factors. Must factors are those where you have to have those factors fulfilled before the decision is taken, and want factors are those where their desires, wishes. So it need not be that when you take a decision, that decision fully what should I say, meets the want criteria, but to a great extent, if it is met, it's really ideal. So then I said you need to really differentiate these two groups of factors, and after that, give a weightage for all the want factors, and score the various alternatives against each of the want factor, calculate the total weighted score, and whichever alternate gets the maximum score is the decision, most appropriate decision that one could take. I spoke about that, and also then yesterday I spoke about the application, which is in problem solving, and for making sure that there is stable progress in the business, in the industry. So these are the two areas where Kepner and Trego decision analysis can be applied. Kepner and Trego method per se has got three elements. One is problem analysis, is called as PA, DA for decision analysis, and PPA for potential problem analysis. These are the three verticals of Kepner and Trego problem solving, which I explained on Monday that I had the experience of doing this within the month of joining MICO after my engineering. And from there on, I've been using that and thinking in that direction. So it was kind of a seed for me to think in that direction. So that's been my life. I've always worked in trying to solve a problem and then try to bring about change and do things in a better way. So that's been my career in Bosch, and later as a consultant. And today I talk about the cons and negatives of decision analysis. So first thing is, see, the decision outcome can be biased. Uh, Biased due to the subjective weights and scores. That's a very, very key issue in Kepner and Trego decision analysis. Like in case of FMEA, where the scores can be given the way they would find it suitable. For example, in some of the FMEAs I have seen, though they are doing just visual inspection, the scores for detection would be somewhere around 3 or 4, which is very, very wrong. In the case of a visual inspection, the score has to be 8. So that there is some kind of an action plan to make sure that it doesn't get through the visual inspection, 8 or even 9. then or in the case of occurrence, even though the probability, the capability of the process is around 1.0 or 1.2, somebody would give a score of 3 or 4 for the process because no defect has occurred. So those things are little critical, because the ones who see the FMEA also, I see that all my customers today submit FMEAs to their customers, and if I go through those FMEAs, I'll find half a dozen areas where the assessment has not been done correctly. And the person who received the FMEA from their customers organization also didn't have the time or maybe competence to really go through and find out if the assessment has been done correctly or not. See, all these tools are there. It's like a hammer, right? You can have a hammer, and you should know how to use the hammer to hit a nail. If that is not known, then it won't really make any sense. Or you may have a one key spanner, and then whether the one key spanner can work or not, unless you know how to use that one key spanner or an Allen key or a screwdriver, it really doesn't help at all. So using the tool is extremely important. Even in this case, the subjectivity is something which is very, very critical. Therefore, the mitigation for that would be to really have a diverse group of stakeholders, preferably with conflicts, so that they would then debate upon and then thrash out these scores which are given there, so that it becomes as objective as possible. Because if the score is objective, that means if there is a certain amount of calibration because of the diversity in the group, then the decision becomes more robust, and also the buy-in is much easier. Otherwise, somebody says that, oh, this fellow just did the DA for the sake of doing it and to make it sound as if it's done in a very professional, objective manner, but he already had decided what had to be done. And that's again something which is very, very critical. One needs to be very, very cautious on that. Because to share my secret, or my what should I say, some secrets, many a times I too have done that, try to support my bosses whenever they had taken a decision and the decision had to be justified. So I've used KT, decision analysis, to justify the decision. Of course, it went through because the decision what the boss took was very, very logical, very I could see that it is something which is the most appropriate decision, but then there was nothing to justify that was the right decision. It could have been either choosing a new location, it could have been either choosing a new vendor whose price was not L1, but he was the best to be chosen at that particular point of time, or it could be something to talk about choosing a particular technology or a machine for a process. Many a times in companies, you define rules, right? There are rules, for example, of calculating the payback period, then the net present value, and the internal rate of return. These are the three indicators which are done for any capex investment. And many a time the companies really close their eyes and say that unless these the numbers are met, I don't want to take a decision at all. So if once that kind of a management is there, that kind of a leadership style is practiced in the organization, you really don't need any intelligent people running the company, because everything is written and you're only making sure that it is either acceptable or not acceptable. If that is the case, then you might as well put a kind of a control in the computer systems where the project payback period, net present value, and internal rate of return are calculated, or unless it is beyond or lesser than some value. Typically, IRR of more than 15% is something good, payback period of less than 3 years, and net present value, of course, should be positive. Otherwise, it doesn't make any sense in investing. So if suppose these three are not meeting the criteria, then it won't really go to the next level at all. You can put a hard gate there. That's a very dumb way of working, right? But the people are there, and people are there to take decisions. That's why decision making is the biggest skill. That's why everybody cannot become the CEOs. Everybody cannot become the prime ministers of a country or a president of a country, because there is a lot of gut feel in the decision making. Though it is very, very, it's supposed to be very transparent and very, very what should I say, fair. There is a lot of gut feel, a lot of intuition which goes into decision making. Therefore, not always is decision making very, very 100% objective, I would say. I would use a word like that. So in such cases where my boss would have taken a decision, my boss could have been a global vice president, could be a global VP, or a global board member, or could have been a department head. I don't want to really take any names. But in that case, I have gone and done a KT with my wisdom of having used KT since I joined Bosch 1 month after I joined Bosch, having done KT so much. I have used my wisdom in trying to make a DA for that person, which definitely would have been subjective, and the decision, whatever he took or she took, would have been justified. That really basically made sure that whatever decision he took was accepted by the others, and then we could execute the decision. Now, this is something which is very critical. The only way you can mitigate that is to have a diverse group of people. That's the first thing, which is a very, very critical negative. The second one is the diverse team is a must for effectiveness. That's something which I explained to the first one. And without the diverse team, you would not really get a decision which is objective at all. It will be just biased towards one direction, and that's very, very dangerous, because then you're only making a paper to prove whatever you decided. Of course, many a times you decide something which is not right. I've signed investments where the net present value was minus X million euros, and the payback period was infinite, and IRR was maybe around 1% or 2% or whatever it is, and maybe negative also. We have taken a decision like that because that's a strategic decision for making sure that our technology is enhanced and we maintain competitivity in the market. Now, that decision, having seen the numbers and then taken a decision, is what I would imagine the job of a leader is. To really look at those numbers correctly and take a decision. Even in the KT, if suppose you have an alternate which says it is the lowest weighted score, but still the leader can take the decision, because that is possibly something which is going to be the most beneficial from his perspective, from his gut perspective, not even intuition, that it will be good for the company. And that's something which is totally allowed. And there he should be bold enough in writing it down, documenting it, so that it's known to everybody. It's not that it is a hide and seek. And like I said, a lot of things of this kind have been done, because in Germany, when I was there, it's impossible to outsource a particular component, and from the cost perspective. In India, always when you outsource anything from a large company, it's always cheaper to get it done outside, because the outside guys always, the tier 1 or tier 2 or tier 3 vendors always have lesser salaries first, and then they have not so many systems, and the general fixed cost is less. And many a times they don't follow a lot of guidelines and regulations, and therefore it's cheaper to get it done outside. Whereas and the bigger companies obviously have challenges with the unions, so they can't really make sure that the machines run 24/7. They need to have a lot of breaks in between. So all these really accumulates to higher cost in a OEM. So whereas it is given to a smaller guy, it will be cheaper. In Germany, it is never the case, because the tariffs are defined at a national level, and therefore irrespective of who manufactures it, where the employee is working, his salary, his tariff wage for that particular job, let us say he's a machinist level 4, whether it is with Bosch or any other company in the country, it is identical. There is no difference at all, because the union is one single union for the entire country. Therefore, it is not possible for us to outsource it because of cheaper labor, and every company in Germany is quite strict, because the regulator is very, very strong. So you can't really, in fact, I just share a very interesting episode. See, in the Bosch factory in Feuerbach, we had underground river passing by. And the government's regulation was that anything that comes out of your site, whether it is underground or above ground, it has to be fully clean. There should not be any pollutants. So we had a massive setup there. I'm sure even today they're doing that, to really pump out the water from the underground river, clean it up, and pump it back inside. We had a effluent treatment plant only for doing that, pumping out the water from the underground stream, clean it up, and put it back into the stream. That's the extent of the regulator. In India, even though you have a drain where you have got all kinds of muck and oil and effluents are left out, the regulator many a times is not really bothered about that. But nowadays it's becoming better. So with that situation, it's not possible for smaller companies to really not do anything at all in that direction. The second thing is, if you are a larger company, the biggest benefit we had in Bosch was the ability to get the machine running at a very, very high efficiency, utilization. When I say utilization, it is based on 24 hours, 24/7 working. We would run at 85-90% utilization, mind you, on 24/7, including the setup. That means including the setup, even stopping for the setup, we would be running the machines at 87, 88, 89% utilization. That's really fantastic, really fantastic. And that's one of the reasons why possibly this country is really industrially possibly the most advanced, or one of the most advanced in the world in terms of productivity, in terms of products that they make. So therefore we could not outsource it at all. But then there were a lot of decisions taken to outsource despite all this costing. because of a strategic reason. Maybe we didn't have any intention of expanding that particular plant, or maybe we had an intention of transferring that production to a different location. So there was no point in expanding the particular plant. So we would go ahead and outsource. But then the documentation was very clear that it is not economical, but still we would outsource. So this transparency comes in moment you are using methodologies like the Kepner and Trego. That's something which is necessary, and for that, a diverse team is must for effectiveness. The last one, the preparing the decision analysis matrix takes time. That is something which is one has to consider when you're trying to decide. If you, let us say, look at three alternates, three quotations you have got, and maybe you just took the final number there and then compare all the three and take a decision is very fast. Whereas when you're trying to do a Kepner and Trego decision analysis, you need time. At least you need to plan one day. So the mitigation for that is to make sure that you have planned that one day in your entire process, so that you take the time, because it's a big decision. Many times these decisions run into, in terms of numbers, millions of currency, whether it is India, Germany, US, or Europe, wherever it is, it will be in terms of millions, nothing less than that. Therefore, it's worth giving that additional time, one day time, to really get this matrix study. And for that, you need to study through all the alternates in a very, very detailed manner. That's the reason why you need more time. And so for the last two cons, which is diverse team and the time for making the matrix, my suggestion is you need to plan it in advance. Even the diverse team can be had, because for everybody it's really great. You're part of a decision making. It's not about just executing something, and that's really inspiring for everybody. And therefore, if you get everybody on board and then get this team organized, for that again you need time. You need to plan that out. So with that, it's not really a negative at all, because you get a better buy-in in the organization to implement a idea which possibly would be extremely difficult to implement. So with that, these cons, though they sound a little negative, in my opinion they're all positive, because that gives you a very transparent decision making process instead of making it very obscure, even though it is a gut based decision finally. And that's something which you need to remember. That's the job of a CEO. But at least there is transparency as to what was the objective recommendation, and the CEO took a different decision. No problem at all. That is what he's paid for. And then there is a reason why he took a decision. That also he could document it. So with that, thanks a lot for watching, and see you tomorrow more or less at the same time on the pros and positives of decision analysis model from Kepner and Trego. And what should I say? Goodbye, and stay in touch. Keep writing your comments and keep posting your comments, and it'll be nice to share and discuss these topics. Thank you and goodbye.